This is infrared. And we're in the 145th Street station in the Hamilton Heights neighborhood of Manhattan, so that you don't have to be. It's Monday afternoon, April 4th, about 1:20 in the afternoon. 145th Street is the original end of the line for the original subway line in 1904. There's a northbound number 1 train arriving now. So if this had been 118 years ago, this would be the end of the line for the train. It's obviously going further north now. And just looking into the tunnel south towards the 137th Street station, between here and 137th Street is a multi-track underground storage yard for trains. A little timestamp because it is April 4th, 2022. You can see some sunlight peeking through the ventilation grating. Also looks like a lot of sparks in the distance. So this is another installment in our series, Broadway by the Hour, where we're walking the entire length of Broadway from Battery to the Bronx in 1-hour segments. Today we're starting at 145th Street. This neighborhood has gone by several names. Currently, Hamilton Heights, also West Harlem, going back a little further, Spanish Harlem. Former movie theater, perhaps. And again, a challenge to parallel parking. Kind of looks like portions of San Francisco. Certainly hope so. So these buildings, these apartment buildings, which seem very similar, if not by their facades in terms of their height and their bulk, these were all constructed starting with the completion of the subway up to 145th Street in 1904. And as the subway continued to move northward past 145th Street, so did the construction of these apartment buildings. And some of these very old buildings are getting a facelift. I wonder what exotics are. Supermarket. Just some of the detail on the buildings. Wow, a Tesla taxi. Okay. Okay, here, Trinity Church Cemetery and Mausoleum. I believe this is where former Mayor Ed Koch is buried. Either here or across the street where the cemetery continues. Well, I don't know for sure, but I think this is related to Trinity Church downtown. Trinity Church, Wall Street, and St. Paul's Chapel, but not sure. The Church of the Intercession across the street, and we're just going to see if we can get access to the cemetery briefly. Interesting mural, and another church up the block. And it looks like it's gated also. So we will come back, or you come back. I don't know to what extent and how many hours the cemetery on either side of the street is open, but I would like to see the final resting place for Ed Koch. So what's this very large building that takes up most of this block? This used to be called Audubon Plaza or Terrace, actually Audubon Terrace. And in fact, here we are in the Audubon Terrace Historic District. Let's get another look at the church. And this building, from 1916, part of the Audubon Terrace complex that used to house a number of museums. And just look at the frieze on the building. Now, one of the signs said that it's the home of ๊brɔːdweɪ College. Let's see what else is located here. Okay, the Hispanic Society Museum and Library. That was here, as was the American Academy of Arts and Letters. They had museums here going back at least 50 years, I'm sure much longer. What is no longer, definitely no longer, in one of these buildings is the Museum of the American Indian. For decades, it was located here, but it moved downtown, and we saw it on segment 1 of Broadway by the Hour. It moved into the old Custom House at Battery Park. or across the street from Battery Park. Back when the Museum of the American Indian was here, this whole plaza or Audubon Terrace complex had a reputation something like, the densest museum collection that no one ever heard of, because this location got very little publicity in typical tourist publications. And the walkway looks very similar to the original Columbia University campus walkway, which we covered on an earlier segment of Broadway by the Hour. Well, I think this is the Academy of Arts and Letters. And it's right up against a couple of apartment buildings. But this is also interesting to see the backside of kind of the typically large apartment buildings that are in this area. These air shafts, fire escapes. The American Numismatic Society. I did visit each of these buildings in one visit on an afternoon almost exactly 50 years ago, but I haven't been back since. I didn't see before. The name under the statue is Al Cid. The statuary here. Or is it sculpturary? And noting the brick walkway. All right. That was Audubon Terrace. So here we have the 157th Street Station, the first stop north of 145th, the original end of the subway in 1904. Okay, that looks intriguing, at least the left side of the sign. I have to skip it for now. (158th Street). This is an exit from the northbound Henry Hudson Parkway, and it's also an entrance to the Henry Hudson Parkway. And down there towards the river is something that always puzzled me. Exiting at the exit is when you go up 158th Street, there is a sign pointing to the right saying Safety City, but every time I've gone by it, it's locked. It's inaccessible. I think it's something that the city DOT provides to provide street safety information to children, but I don't know. There are several safety cities in other boroughs too. 159th Street. The way it curves around here. Just go look at these buildings.
Why are you so mean to me today?
Suddenly I have a craving for mofongo. Down a typical side street. Noting similar apartment building density as it is on Broadway.
Tenis, zapato, bacano, io barato.
Okay, we are approaching 165th Street, and that is the southern end of the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center, which is part of New York Presbyterian Hospital System. But let's cross the street and take a look at this building across the street. Dr. Betty Shabazz Way. This is where Malcolm X was assassinated. In front of this former theater, the Audubon Ballroom. Having trouble remembering the name now. Of course, now home to a ramen shop. And paying appropriate tribute, Dallas Barbecue. And here are some of the buildings comprising the medical center. All right, we have 17 seconds to cross. I think this is Children's Hospital. Yes, now called Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. Just to give you a sense of these buildings. As well as these newer ones across the street. This always intrigued me. Babies Hospital, or actually the Babies Hospital. So, a big complex. And here we have 168th Street on the ACN1, a transfer station. To get to the number 1 station, you have to use elevators. It's down pretty deep. The AC station, not so much. You can get there by stairway. And the number 1 portion of the station, having been constructed very early in the 1900s, has a nice arched ceiling for the entire length of the station. So, some of the Columbia buildings, Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center, and double fines for what? I don't know. But let's walk down here and get some more of a sense of the size of the medical center. And what do you know? A pharmacy is across the street. Four ambulances at once, and here's another 3. Well, actually, no, here's another 4. 8 ambulances in a half block. This, I guess, is not part of the medical center. It's called the Armory. I guess because it was an armory. I don't know what armory this used to be. And one of the buildings, let's see, it says 1926 over the entryway, College of Physicians and Surgeons, School of Medicine, Columbia University. Well, that's it. Wait, there's more. So these newer buildings closer to the Hudson River, west of the original campus, are now connected via this series of stacked sky bridges. Let's cross. And the campus continues. What these are. Seats for little people. This is a residence hall for medical students. So I think that is the end of the Columbia University Medical Center campus, Columbia Presbyterian.
Yeah, right.
We're now at 170th Street. Let's rejoin Broadway. We left Broadway behind. Let's go down this closed street. Oh, also notice how this street is being milled to be resurfaced. All right, well, this building's captured my attention, so let's keep walking up here on Haven Avenue. You can see movable scaffold. Let's get a closer look. Okay. Don't know what they're doing, but I wish them good luck. And what is this building, and what is its next door neighbor? And it looks like two twin towers almost, this building, and I'm guessing this is part of Columbia too. And it says so. Roy and Diana Vagalos. Education. Okay, so part of Columbia. So we haven't left the medical center quite yet. Just looking back and looking at the change in elevation here.
The outside.
So Haven Avenue continues, but we're gonna go on 176. We're gonna cross this road being milled. But before it's resurfaced, they had to build a mound up to the kind of manhole cover. All right. Oh. Just getting this view through the vacant lot to high-rise residential buildings, I'm presuming, on the Palisades, on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. I wanted to ask him to show me his biceps. I won't. So, between the time we left Broadway and went to Haven Avenue and then returned, this other north-south street that we're approaching got inserted. It's Fort Washington Avenue. So we are going to, again, in keeping with our theme of walking north on Broadway or some of the surrounding area, we're going to continue up Fort Washington Avenue. We're in the Washington Heights neighborhood. A little north of here on Fort Washington Avenue, the neighborhood is called Fort Washington. Imagine that. This enshrouded building is a public school, PS 173, and it's getting an exterior modernization. And this is J. Hood Wright Park. I'm guessing it's supposed to evoke the George Washington Bridge. And let's take a look at these rock outcroppings. That's the George Washington Bridge Manhattan Tower in the back. All right. Well, since we're here, I've never been here before. Let's see how high we can go. Dog run. All right, well, it looks like traffic on the George Washington Bridge finally started to move. Just an hour ago it was at a near standstill, but now you can see it is moving at nearly normal speeds. And just note the number of trucks. Truck. Also, down below, the cars that are trying to get onto the George Washington Bridge, moving kind of slowly. And then all the traffic that's moving towards the left, people coming off of the George Washington Bridge and heading for the southbound West Side Highway, where Broadway by the hour began. Okay. Okay, just a word to the wise. A sudden drop off here. Oh, what happens if you go up this ramp? Because we're in back of several apartment buildings right now. And it does look like this park has restrooms. Okay. Well, here's something that's uniquely New York as far as I know. We are on, this is the intersection of 176th Street and Pinehurst Avenue. And this is where Pinehurst dead ends. And so we have an end sign appropriately. And we have this double red light, one red light on top of another, which is the city's way, and only the city's way as far as I know, of designating a dead end. Two red lights, two steady red lights stacked on top of each other. You see a lot of them along Riverside Drive as the side streets end at Riverside Drive. Especially as they end at kind of the Riverside Drive service road. And you see them a few other places in the city where roads dead end, but I've never seen them anywhere else. We're back at Fort Washington Avenue, and one block further in the distance is Broadway. So we're going to go up Fort Washington. But wait. I'm just going to double back for a minute because we want to walk past. Oh, look at this newly installed ventilation grates. But we want to see the nearest subway station. We're at 175th and Fort Washington. By the way, I don't know exactly what function this thing performs, but it is installed along the I&D routes. There are many of them along the I&D system, but I don't know what it does. So I like this subway entrance, the 175th Street stop on the A, because it's architecturally compatible, at least on the exterior, with the park. So, we're not going to go down there now. We're going to continue to walk a little bit further north. So, let's look at the 5-minute radius and the 15-minute radius. Just crossing the street for a second. So Fort Washington is also being milled, and hopefully it will be resurfaced shortly. And new ventilation grates, replacing the ones installed in the 30s. And I think this is a designated bike route, even though right now it's being milled. But here you go. You can enter George Washington Bridge by bike here, or continue straight ahead to Fort Tryon Park and the Cloisters and the Hudson River. Elevator entrance to 175th, even though we just passed 177. We're approaching 178. So I think everyone knows about the Port Authority bus terminal in Midtown Manhattan. Almost everyone who arrives by bus from elsewhere in the country, most of the buses go to Port Authority, or they board outdoors. The lower cost lines like Megabus may board outdoors, but still in Midtown. Here, a view towards the George Washington Bridge. But the Port Authority also built, in conjunction with the George Washington Bridge, I think specifically in conjunction with creating the lower level, adding the lower level to the George Washington Bridge. They built the George Washington Bridge bus station, which primarily provides service across the Hudson to a few New Jersey communities. The station was closed for renovations, but reopened a couple years ago. In the interim, while this was being renovated, there was a temporary bus station set up across the street. So let's take a look at the main level, the main concourse level. This is the George Washington Bridge bus station. There are restrooms in here. And The 175th Street stop on the A stops here. So here are the gates for mostly New Jersey Transit buses to various points across the river. So this whole gate area, I recall it being smaller before the renovation. Certainly the signage wasn't as good. Alright, so it looks like Greyhound stops here as well. Picketing and more restrooms. Okay. And here's some happy passengers. Welcome to New York. So now you have the experience that others have arriving in New York at the George Washington Bridge bus station, which seems like an appropriate place and time to end this segment of Broadway by the Hour. We went from 145th Street and Broadway up to 178th Street and ended at the George Washington Bridge. And you can leave here by the A train, as we just saw. You know, as the song goes, you take the A train, it's the quickest way to the George Washington Bridge bus station. So, thank you for sharing this. This is Infrared. And this is what you've been watching.